¿Qué pasa, amigos? My name is Ash, and today I want to talk about the new title reveal for this year's Call of Duty game, and what I feel like we really need from this year's addition to the series to make the game an all-around success. Starting off with what we know so far about this year's COD, we begin with the recently revealed title. The name of the 2020 title is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Quite the mouthful there, but hey, I don't hate it. This installment will be a prequel, as it will be the earliest era ever for a Black Ops game. The timetable for the campaign is said to be pretty expansive, going from the Cold War 50s all the way to the Vietnam Fault 70s. Cold War will also be the very first next-gen COD game, launching on both PS5 and Xbox Series X, and this is where we really jump into what I believe we need from this year's game. I believe this year's Call of Duty title really needs to take advantage of the next generation by utilizing their power and scope to build and implement features on a scale of which we've never seen before in a COD game. Whether it's ray tracing to build stunningly lit maps, or using the power of the consoles to create a massive battle royale mode, if Treyarch and Activision can find a way to really take advantage of this newfound power, Cold War and its community will really reap the benefits. Speaking of taking advantage of a situation, as we have seen over the last few years, the battle royale genre has really dominated the gaming landscape, and with Warzone's massive success, I think we can all agree that Cold War should release a BR. With that being said, Activision has claimed Warzone will span multiple Call of Duty titles. However, we heard this exact promise from the publisher with Black Ops 4 BR, known as Blackout, and we all saw how poorly that played out, so this is definitely something we should continue to push for moving forward. Another concern I have is an IP like Warzone will be a very difficult asset for Infinity Ward to just hand over to Treyarch for further development. Handing over the reins to a completely new game, especially one from a completely different era and developer, seems near impossible. A move like this would certainly ruin the continuity of Warzone as a whole. But with that being said, what we need from Cold War is a fully formed battle royale mode developed specifically for the Black Ops series. With the development timeline reduced by a full year for the 2020 COD title due to the incompetence of Sledgehammer Games, we will most likely see a BR launch well after the core game, much like we saw with Warzone. Speaking of post-launch content, this is exactly what this year's game really needs to succeed. If Fortnite taught us anything, it showed us how effective a rush of post-launch content can truly be. While COD titles have always had post-release content, they were too few and far between to really keep players dialed in. Where Cold War can really flourish is by showering players with new content drops every other week or so, with the key drop coming in the form of the Battle Royale mode. Continuing to update the core multiplayer as well as the BR mode will only help develop the game while keeping it fresh and engaging for players. Next up, I believe Black Ops Cold War most definitely needs to supply the community with a rejuvenated multiplayer experience. In the last few years, the franchise has really seemed to rely heavily on the Battle Royale genre. While the multiplayer experience hasn't been bad, the series used to be world renowned for their multiplayer gameplay, and it feels like that has been lost to a certain degree. Starting with map design, I would say we need to get back the old tried and true 3-lane map development. However, we know our good friends at Treyarch are in love with that map design system, so no worries there. So what I'm really asking for is that Treyarch moves away from the ever-continuing trend of smaller, faster-paced maps. Call of Duty multiplayer was made great by utilizing larger 3-lane maps that encourage longer range sniping and focus a bit more on the range of assault rifles. What I'm really envisioning here is some of the larger and mid-sized maps designed by Treyarch in World at War. In my opinion, this was one of the best designed games in regards to its maps. These smaller map trends turn COD into the chaotic hellscape that other gaming communities have memed for a very long time. For example, the Battlefield communities have always hated on COD for being a mindless slaughterfest, and many of the recent map designs seem to really feed into this ideal. Getting the Cold War multiplayer back to the Call of Duty roots is something I believe we need later this year. Speaking of getting back to the roots, this is the exact opposite of what I think Cold War needs when it comes to the multiplayer gameplay itself. Death streaks, double jumping, wall running, and kill streaks. Each one of these was a brand new mechanic introduced to the games that changed the way multiplayer was played, some more than others, but what I think this year's Call of Duty needs is a game-changing mechanic that really enhances the multiplayer experience in a fresh and unique way. However, the hardest part of adding such a mechanic is doing so without destroying the heart of the game. Many of the game-changing mechanics have turned the community against each other, with half loving the change and the other half of hating how the game has evolved. For Treyarch to add a fun and fresh game-changing mechanic while keeping the majority of the community happy will be a massive challenge that will be difficult to overcome. However, it is certainly something that Black Ops Cold War will need to be successful. Finally, we move on to our third and final game mode typically found within each Call of Duty installment, the campaign. What I believe this COD really needs, especially now, is a strong alternate history campaign. And what I mean there is that I'm hoping the campaign will take place in a completely fictional version of the American Cold War. I believe this is essential because the Cold War, well, it wasn't actually a war. If Treyarch were to entirely fictionalize a badass alternative history of the Cold War, they could truly create an incredible campaign that could show what could have happened if the Cold War would have escalated between the United States and the USSR. So those are really the main core elements that I believe Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War needs. I truly feel as though each of those aspects are important to the overall success of the game. However, if any one of them doesn't play out perfectly, it doesn't mean the game will outright fail. As we've seen, a single game mode can really carry a game into the spotlight, especially if the mode that is done right is the Battle Royale. Either way, I'm really excited to get more information from Treyarch about Cold War, which we now know will be coming sooner rather than later. Anyway, that will do it for this video. Make sure you hit like, click or tap that subscribe button to become the heart of this gaming channel, and be a part of the conversation in the comments below by telling everyone how you feel about any and all of today's Call of Duty needs. And for more gaming analysis, news, reviews, and opinions, stay here on Ashheart. And as always, thanks for watching. And there's my air conditioning right on cue. I'm gonna leave that in there.